Hey there, welcome to Golf Strategy School. Today we're going to be talking about something that is kind of a holy grail for weekend golfers, and that's breaking 80. Now, we're specifically talking about the statistics required to break 80 on average. Now, I promise, this is not going to be some crazy deep dive. You don't have to memorize a quadratic equation. You don't have to have a master's in math. It's okay. I'm going to make it easy to understand and give you some tips on how you can meet these statistical averages. But let's talk about it. All right, so first we need to talk about two things regarding statistics. First, it's statistics themselves. If you have too small of a data set, you're not going to have really good numbers. So the data set that I'm using comes from the website shotbyshot.com. It is run by Peter Sanders, and he has over 600,000 rounds in his data set. So we clearly have some good numbers to go by. What we're looking at next is what specific statistics we're talking about. That's tough to say. Specific statistics. What specific numbers we're looking at to actually figure this out. Frankly, you probably already track these, which is fantastic, but we're looking at fairways, we're looking at greens in regulation, we're looking at scrambling or getting up and down, and we are looking at putts. So those are the four numbers that we're looking at. If you have fairways, greens in regulation, and putts, you can obviously figure out how to get that scrambling number. But first and foremost, we're talking about deriving. So we're kind of working our way from the tee box to the green. In order to shoot 79 on average out of this gigantic data set, we only had 57% of fairways hit. Be honest, are you a little surprised? Because I was. And the crazy thing here is, if you're truly keeping yourself to whether or not you were in the short grass, honestly, you're being too hard on yourself. What we need to consider for a fairway hit is kind of a near fairway concept. Really, all it matters is that you have a next shot that will get you to the green. As long as you're not playing in some like US Open style rough and it's not like a penalty, as long as you have a clear, achievable shot to the next objective, which is the green, then hey, your fairway is hit. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here is because we're talking about fairways, we're also assuming a standard golf course with 4 par 3s. So we're taking those out. We only have to hit 8 out of 14 fairways to achieve that 57%. Now, you can't just go and like rifle it 6 fairways to the right. That's not going to be allowable. This statistic, this metric does, however, allow for 1 penalty shot. So if it's a true penalty shot, like you found water or you had to take a drop from behind a tree, or if you had to punch out or you had stroke and distance from out of bounds, those are situations where you had your penalty shot and you're really only allotted 1 of those per round. By all means, get yourself as close to the green as possible. If you have a big open spot and you've got more room to take a bigger swing at it, go for it. Spice it up a little bit. It's okay to get a little wild. Now, I apologize. I'm saying that because my daughter is looking at me just off camera, so I have to embarrass her. I totally got you. All right, Dad's willing to be embarrassing on YouTube if if he gets the kids embarrassed. So anyway, fairways 8 out of 14. Really, all you got to do is keep it somewhere near the short grass. You don't even have to keep it in the short grass. Now let's move on to greens in regulation. All right, so for greens in regulation, you're probably going to be a little surprised, but our number required comes down. It's only down to 44%. So that's 8 out of 18 greens that we've hit in regulation. This doesn't mean that every green you miss is a hosel rocket 2 fairways over. It really means that 80% of these misses are going to come and land within 50 yards of the green. So yeah, you can have one that's a big old chunk and that doesn't get you even halfway there. That's okay. You can still break 80 even with a dead top. You just have to get 80% of those misses within 50 yards of the green. Now, the way that I help people achieve this, and you're probably not going to like this because it's the no fun way, but it's to be conservative with your approach shots. Now, here's what I mean. If you're ever between clubs, you always take the longer club, because most of the time when you hit a club, you are going to hit it shorter. So if we're ever in question about what club to use the longer one. And then all you got to do is take a shorter swing that focuses more on contact, on nice, smooth center face contact. And that will get us a lot closer. Now, the other thing that we can do to be a little bit more conservative and to have a higher success rate in terms of our greens in regulation is always aim for the middle, regardless of where the pin is. If we aim at the middle and we miss 5 yards left or right or short or long, we're still on the green. That's what makes it so powerful. Aim at the middle every single time, and you are going to be so much better off. We want to truly commit to a center green target for those shots. All right, let's move on to the next one, scrambling. All right, for scrambling, again, what we're talking about here, just to put some parameters around it, and you may have heard me use this in my podcast, but we're talking about SIFI, shots inside 50 yards. So SIFI is a very, very important statistic, because that's a situation where you actually kind of have a coin toss as to whether or not you can get up and down. Now, like we were talking about with our greens in regulation, we wanted 80% of those misses to land inside of 50 yards. So that means that would leave us 8 shots that we have the opportunity to put in this scrambling category. So far, we've gone from 57% success rate on fairways, 44% success rate on greens in regulation. It's getting easier. 38% success rate for shots inside of 50 yards in terms of getting up and down and converting that par. That's only 3 out of the 8. You can achieve this. Start breaking it down into these kind of demographics and these categories, and you'll see how close you are on any given day to doing exactly the same thing that someone shooting 79 does. Now, again, the ones that you don't convert on, it doesn't mean you can go Happy Gilmore and 4 or 5 putt. You still got to keep that reined in. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that you shouldn't put as much pressure on yourself for every single shot, because you don't need to be perfect on every single shot to still achieve these pretty fantastic goals that the drastic majority of the golfing public has never done. It's really more achievable than you think. All right, before we get on to our next one, I wanted just to say, if this has been helpful for you, if you have found this beneficial, if you could just give a tap to that like button, I would certainly appreciate it. That way we can get this out to more golfers, help more people achieve their goals of breaking 80, or maybe it's still working on breaking 90. That's okay too. But if this has been helpful for you, give the like button a tap. I would certainly appreciate it. All right, so now we are on to our fourth and final statistic, putting. This is the one where you're going to struggle. All right. Putting, on average, is what's going to save your bacon, right? If you think back to your best rounds, your personal bests, what went well? It was probably your chipping and your putting. I know it is for me. I got around on the front 9 of my home course once at 5 under par. I had 11 putts. There's no mystery as to why I shot that well that day. My putter was on fire. If I was on the green, it was going in. And if I wasn't on the green, I was probably chipping it to kick in range anyway. So now for putts, we need 32 putts on average to shoot 79. So you can think about this a couple different ways. I can either run the gamut and assume I'm not going to 3-putt. That's pretty rare, especially for a weekend amateur golfer. If you want to give yourself a little bit of a buffer, you would want 5 1-putts and 1 3-putt for that buffer zone. So again, this isn't impossible, but this is clearly our biggest challenge, right? It is the toughest to achieve out of all of these. I could take someone who golfs just on the weekends, and there's a decent chance that they will achieve 2 of the 4 of these. There's a decent chance that they'll hit 57% of their fairways. There's a decent chance they'll hit 44% of their greens in regulation. They're going to have a harder time getting up and down, and they're going to have the hardest time putting. We want to give ourselves a little bit of buffer room if we can. When it comes to putting, the couple of super quick off the top of my head tips that I can give you is that the speed is the most important thing, bar none. That is what is going to determine the line in a lot of cases, especially for your longer putts. And it's what's going to leave you a putt that is easily makeable for your second one. So that way we do avoid those 3 putts. Now, if you need help with your short game and your putting, I actually have a completely free 5 strokes in 5 days challenge. I'll leave it here in the show notes. That way you can check that out. But it really focuses on chipping and putting and really getting you as polished and sharp as possible, as quickly as possible. It's totally free. All you got to do is click and sign up at the link below. Otherwise, hey, if you put these things into practice, your scores are going to be coming down real quick, and I absolutely will be catching you in the short grass. Cheers, everybody.